If net neutrality stops being something that we actively work towards, that is actively mandated by law, then everybody is at risk. And then just simply because it opens up the monopoly game again. And we've seen monopolies in this country before, and actually at one point in our history, we had a really good, record of breaking them the hell up. But now we don't. Now we capitulate to monopolies. Now we sit here and we try to do everything we can to make it easier to become one. And so the simple fact of the matter is, folks, if we don't maintain net neutrality, you don't get this show. You don't get Ben's show. You don't get Anoa's show. You don't get PA. You don't get our articles. You don't get our news. You don't get the opinions that you guys have been, obviously you're here watching. So, I mean, it's important that we work on that. I think it's just as important as it is to work in tearing down the system, because we now live in an age where the internet is a thing that we need, that the internet is the best way to share ideas, to spread information. And at this point, if we don't save net neutrality, I don't think there's any hope that we could ever try and save the country, because net neutrality is one thing we all really can rally around.
And I think that it's the only thing that's saving the movement as itself right now.
And just to give some, I don't know how familiar everybody is with net neutrality and what it means, but essentially it would turn the internet into much like how your cable, or most people here probably cut the cord in general, but how cable subscriptions works, where you have to pay. If you want access to some things, you're going to have to pay for things that you don't want access to, and or you're going to have restricted access to other services or platforms without paying an additional fee, not to the people that are on those platforms, like through something like a Patreon, but instead you're going to have to give Comcast more money if you want to see, our show and Ben's show on YouTube. That's going to cost you more money, but that money's going to go in Comcast pocket, and none of it's going to come back towards the people that are actually producing the content. And it's going to destroy things like this, and it's going to lend itself towards the larger productions with big money and that have large corporate sponsors and stuff like that, and it's going to change the landscape a lot, I think. And so and really debilitate and possibly just devastate and end a lot of dissenting voices, essentially. That's where
I'll say about net neutrality, and just about the last 8 or 7 or 9 or whatever, how many months it's been since the general election. The net neutrality proved invaluable to informing people what was going on in the world. Stuff like WikiLeaks, stuff like Guccifer in the summer. A lot of that stuff you wouldn't have heard about had it not been for the fact that the internet is largely a free place, because we know the mainstream media kind of dropped the ball on a lot of those stories. They didn't cover them sufficiently. Same with stuff like Standing Rock.
Or like your last guest with DNC lawsuit.
Yeah, like a lot of this stuff would not be covered, and things like net neutrality, and even YouTube's new BS. If you say curse words or you say Syria out loud, they demonetize your video. It all seems meant to throttle the proliferation of counter narratives to the mainstream political establishment. And what we saw a lot with the Clinton administration, and even with the Donald Trump, basically Clinton campaign, Donald Trump campaign, was their frustration. Same with MSNBC, really, any mainstream. Their frustration with the fact that they no longer had control of the narrative. Like the narrative was, there was no longer a way for MSNBC to dictate what the left was thinking. Because that was Twitter. That was, the Young Turks. That was, the David Pakman show, or Sam Cedar, or all these other micro outlets. And they are still struggling with trying to figure that out. They couldn't. They can't. This isn't the news and politics is now an internet game. And they realize that they're looking for street cred. Chris Hayes is begging to go on Chapo every week. It's God. It's just so.
Well, I think one thing that's important about the net neutrality thing, and about why it's important for everyday folks to get engaged and be involved and know, and not expect the institutions, or in this case, companies like Google or some of the companies that have stood up for net neutrality, is that we know when the wheels hit the road or whatever, that Google, for instance, in China, they will capitulate. They will bend in order to get more market share, in order to make more money. They will curtail the distribution of freedom of information in order to make more money. So if the U.S. government gives them an ultimatum of, either you follow these rules and support us, or we're gonna knock you down or knock you out through these rules, they'll capitulate to keep their profit, and that's why we can't just depend on them to fight for it. We have to be in the streets fighting for it, just like we're fighting for healthcare, just like fighting for everything else. But go ahead.
I guess my point was that in order for democracy to function, you have to have a free and vibrant media, and that's not MSNBC and Fox News, and even that's not the HuffPo, that's not the Daily Kos, that's not the that's not any of those places anymore. Like that's just like that's all the establishment now. And so like in order for like sans net neutrality, our democracy cannot continue to flourish.
Just we're coming up on 5 minutes to 2 hours, so I was just gonna say I think this
we're gonna cut right there. Yeah, we're gonna cut right there. It's just like, but for net neutrality, outlets like this, whether you like the show or not, right? You're not gonna hear this on the mainstream outlet. And so whether you agree or disagree with the premise, you understand that the fact is like, but for net neutrality, there is no media, there is no diversity in media.
So just send it around, I guess, for closing words.
Well, thank you guys for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking my net neutrality question, because I feel very strongly about it and have for a long time. The internet was designed specifically with net neutrality, and the fact that it was never codified until Obama made it under the FCC, it was ridiculous to me. And now the fact that they're going to be so easily able to overturn that is equally ridiculous. We need to fight for it. We need to make sure that net neutrality remains a part of the web.